Hi, everybody, and welcome to Word Focus. So, today we'll be looking at Daniel chapter 6. So, in Daniel chapter 6, Belshazzar has died and a new king has taken over. His name is Darius. So, Darius the Mede decided to divide the kingdom into 120 provinces, and he appointed a high officer to rule over each province. The king also chose Daniel and two other administrators to supervise the high officers and protect the king's interest. Daniel soon proved himself more capable than all the other administrators and high officers. Because of Daniel's great ability, the king made plans to place him over the entire empire. Sorry, it's the same thing. Then the other administrators and high officers began searching for some fault in the way Daniel was handling government affairs, but they couldn't find anything to criticize or condemn. Daniel was faithful, he was responsible, and he was trustworthy. And these are qualities that we are supposed to have in our workplaces. We are supposed to have at wherever we find ourselves. You must be responsible, you must be trustworthy, you must be faithful with the work you've been given. Because, like it or not, there are people who want your downfall. There are people who would look for loopholes. There are people who look for errors in the way you do things just to get you out of the way so that they can have that position. And if you don't do things rightly, they will have a lot of evidence against you. So just do things the right way and be happy. Right. So they concluded our only chance for finding grounds for accusing Daniel will be in connection with the rules of his religion. So the administrators and high officers went to the king and said, "Long live King Darius. We are all in agreement that the king should make a law that will be strictly enforced. Give orders that for the next 30 days, any person who prays to anyone, divine or human, except to you, your majesty, will be thrown into the den of lions. And now, your majesty, issue and sign this law so that it cannot be changed, an official law of the Medes and Persians that cannot be revoked." So King Darius signed the law. He's such a pushover, but that's not what we are talking about. Anyway, so when Daniel learned that the law had been signed, he went home and knelt down as usual. As usual, the law was that nobody should pray to anyone, divine or human, apart from the king. And we know from reading Daniel from the first chapter that he was a prayerful person. He prayed 3 times a day. When he heard about the law, he didn't go around worrying about what was going to happen to him. He didn't care. Since when Daniel learned about the law that had been signed, he went home and knelt down as usual in his upstairs room with its windows open towards Jerusalem. He prayed 3 times a day, just as he has always done, giving thanks to his God. Then the officials went together to Daniel's house and found him praying and asking for God's help. So they went straight to the king and reminded him about his law, saying, "Did you not sign a law that for the next 30 days, any person who prays to anyone, divine or human, except to you, will be thrown into the den of lions?" "Yes," the king replied, "that decision stands. It is an official law of the Medes and Persians that cannot be revoked." Then they told the king, "That man Daniel, one of the captives from Judah, is ignoring you and your law. He still prays to his God 3 times a day." Hearing this, the king was deeply troubled, and he tried to think of a way to save Daniel. He spent the rest of the day looking for a way to get Daniel out of this predicament. In the evening, the men went together to the king and said, "Your Majesty, you know that according to the law of the Medes and the Persians, no law that the king signs can be changed." So at last the king gave orders for Daniel to be arrested and thrown into the den of lions. And the king said to him, "May your God, whom you serve so faithfully, rescue you." Then a stone was brought and placed over the mouth of the den. The king sealed the stone with his own royal seal and the seals of his nobles, so that no one could rescue Daniel. Then the king returned to his palace and spent the night fasting. He refused his usual entertainment and couldn't sleep at all that night. Very early the next morning, the king got up and hurried out to the lion's den. When he got there, he called out in anguish, "Daniel, servant of the living God, was your God, whom you serve so faithfully, able to rescue you from the lions?" Daniel answered, Long live the king. My God sent his angel to shut the lion's mouth so that they will not hurt me. For I have been found innocent in his sight, and I have not wronged you, your majesty. The king was overjoyed and ordered that Daniel be lifted from the den. Not a scratch was found on him, for he had trusted in his God. For he had trusted in his God. Not a scratch was found on him because he trusted in God. Then the king gave orders to arrest the men who had maliciously accused Daniel. He had them thrown into the lions' den along with their wives and children. The lions leaped on them and tore them apart before they even hit the floor. You just imagine how hungry these lions were. And there was a man sitting there with them the entire night, and they didn't even scratch him. Just imagine how hungry they were. Because this is obviously a den for punishment. So it is not a den that they will feed the lions regularly. Because if they feed them regularly and they bring you because you've done something wrong, the lions might be too full to actually eat you, So they keep them hungry so that when the moment you enter, you are dead. Yeah. Says the lion leaped on them and tore them apart before they even hit the floor of the den. Then King Darius sent this message to the people of every race and nation and language throughout the world. Peace and prosperity to you. I decree that everyone throughout my kingdom should tremble with fear before the God of Daniel. For he is the living God, and he will endure forever. His kingdom will never be destroyed, and his rule will never end. He rescues and saves his people. He performs miraculous signs and wonders in the heavens and on earth. He has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions. So Daniel prospered during the reign of Darius and the reign of Cyrus the Persian. And looking at the life of Daniel, you realize that there was this consistency in his life. He was always at all times in regular communion with God. So no matter how things went, he was okay. Even the bad times came. Yeah, the bad times did come in the life of Daniel. Nebuchadnezzar ordered that he be killed. And then God sorted him out. People did things to get him killed, and God still sorted him out. So as a child of you being a child of God doesn't mean that there won't be bad days. There won't be days where it's like there are things working against you. Those days are definitely going to come, right? But the thing is that because you're a child of God, after all the nonsense blows away, you will still be standing unharmed, unscathed, nothing. You will be fine. The issues will come, but you will be fine because God is with you. In Matthew, Jesus says that the one who hears my words and understands it, I'll liken him to a wise man who builds his house on a rock. Then he says that this wise man that he's talking about, the rains came, the winds blew upon the house. It was not easy for him at all. It was not easy for the wise man. But after all those things passed away, his house was still solid. It hadn't moved. It hadn't changed. Nothing was spoiled. Everything was okay. Yeah. And we see it happening in the life of Daniel because of his consistency with God. He didn't change his morals. He didn't change his principles for anybody. And he knew it meant that he knew it. He knew that, he says, when Daniel learned that the law had been signed. So he knew what the law was because he was one of the high officials. So he knew what the law was. That if you are caught praying to any other god apart from the king, you are going to be thrown into a den of lions. He knew it. And when he got to know it, his first point of action was to go into his room, go down on his knees, open his windows, and pray again. And pray to God. After being warned not to pray, that was exactly what he went to do because he knew that God is supreme over everything. And if you are going to stop believing in God, you are going to stop trusting in God because of something a man said to you or because of something that some people have said, then Charlie, it's not right. because God has power over everything, over the men that have said those things to you, over the people that have said that you can't make it, over the people that have looked into your eyes and told you that you are not qualified enough for this position. God has power over all of them, and God does what He wants. So your only concern should be with getting to know Him more, getting closer to God, because He is in charge of everything. He's in charge of everything. Our concern should be getting closer, having a much more intimate relationship with Him. Because no matter what happens, people are going to talk. People are going to discourage you. People are going to tell you can't do it. People are going to tell you 1,000 different ways you could have done it better. People are going to criticize you. People are going to say a whole lot of things. Your concern should be God. Your concern should be the word of God. Should be what God has said. The people that are saying all the things that they are saying, none of them died for you. None of them cares for you. The only person who died for you because He cared was Jesus. It is only His word that matters. So thank you for joining, and I hope you were as blessed as I am. And I'll see you in the next one. Have a nice day. Peace.